Hello there and welcome to my guide for painting Chaos Cultists, specifically the ones from Warhammer Quest Blackstone Fortress. As you can see, the first thing I did was give them all a coat with some Mechanicus Standard Grey. First thing I did was start with the boots and any black areas, and for that I'm going to use some Black Templar contrast paint. It was mostly the boots, but I also did things like shoulder pads and the weapons as well. I then painted their trousers using Dryad bark. The cloth around their waist was painted with Gal Vorbak red. And then I started work on the silver using Iron Hands steel. All of these areas were then given a wash with some Nuln oil. Once that wash is dry, I'm going to go back to the black and use Eshin Grey for the highlight. Catachan flesh will be used for the highlight on the Dryad bark. And then Wordbearer's red will be used to highlight the red leather. This will be followed by a second highlight, this time with Doombril brown. I'm then going to start painting the flesh. For any dark skin, I'm going to use Catachan flesh. And for any light skin, I'm going to use Bugman's glow. I'm then going to use Retributor armor to start painting in some gold. Their symbols will be gold, but as for the other things, I'm just going to pick and choose at random. Then both the flesh and the gold will be given a wash with Reichland Flesh Shade. Once that wash had dried, I then used Blood Reaver flesh to highlight the darker skin, and used Cadian flesh tone to highlight the lighter skin. The lighter skin then got a second highlight with some Kislev flesh. Then I used Mournfang brown to paint any leather straps, Rakarth flesh to paint any bandages. I then used Hashut copper to paint the remaining metallics. Finally, before we do the next wash, I used some Wraithbone to paint all the areas that will eventually be bone. Then everything we've just painted after the flesh will get a wash with some Agrax Earthshade. Once that wash is dry, we're going to use some Skag brown to highlight the straps. And before I go any further, I'm going to use another coat of Agrax Earthshade on the bone sections. I'm then going to relayer the bandages with some Rakarth flesh. And I'm going to use some Uruk Armor Gold to start highlighting the gold areas. And then I'm going to use some Stormhost Silver to highlight the silver areas, the tips of the gold areas, and the tips of the bronze areas. I'm then going to use Wraithbone to highlight the bones. I'm not going to go all the way down to the very edge of the bit, I'm just going to stay roughly at the top. And then I'm going to use Pallid Witch Flesh for a second highlight. I'm then going to use Iron Hand Steel to pick out any rivets in any of the models. I'm then going to use Caribou Crimson to paint in any scars on any of the flesh we can see. And then for the bits of string that are holding up the symbols, I'm going to use some Dryad bark. A couple of the characters has some hair coming out of the top of their head, so I'm going to use Mephiston red for that. And then I'll wash the area with some Caribou crimson. For the flame coming out of the flamethrower, we're going to use some Avalanche Sunset to begin with. Then, starting a little bit away from the beginning of the flame, we're going to use some Flash Gitz Yellow. Then we're going to use some Chikero Orange for the next part. That's followed by some Wild Rider Red. And then finally, I'm going to use some Evil Sun Scarlet for the very tips. And there we are, that's the Chaos Cultists finished. I haven't done the bases on mine, so I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to base mine yet, or the rest of the Blackstone Fortress stuff, so I thought I'd leave that until I do it in one big lump. These guys are a lot of fun to paint. They're very nice models, and Games Workshop always do really, really nice models, and I'm really happy with the way they've come out. All in all, they didn't take too long to paint whatsoever, only about 6.5 hours, and as I said, they are quite fun to do. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I really hope this guide helped. If you like what you saw, think about giving us a subscribe, and I will see you next time. Goodbye for now.